Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Anish and I'm a junior at Enloe High School in Raleigh, North Carolina. And my research is about understanding the role of neuroinflammation caused by microglia and astrocytes in Alzheimer's disease. I chose this topic because I have some close friends and family who are affected by Alzheimer's, and I know that it's a very bad disease to have. It progresses very quickly and it impacts everyone around the person who has it, and not just the person themselves. So the focus of my research is on a specific part of Alzheimer's, which is known as neuroinflammation. And neuroinflammation is caused by these two types of brain cells known as microglia and astrocytes. And I'm currently researching how these cells make the disease worse, what their role is at different stages of Alzheimer's, and whether we can target them to help slow things down. These questions are very important because so many people are affected by Alzheimer's right now. It's approximately 7 million people in the US, and that number is expected to double in the next 30 years. This is obviously a lot of people that are impacted, and it's important that we research better treatments for it. And the main goal of my research is to understand how these brain cells work in Alzheimer's and see if there's a way to use that knowledge to slow down the disease and help people with Alzheimer's to live better lives. So, what exactly is Alzheimer's? It's a condition where the brain starts to lose its ability to function properly over time. This leads to things like memory loss, confusion, and a lot of other symptoms that gets worse as the disease progresses. As said before, a big part of Alzheimer's is something called neuroinflammation, which means the brain is basically dealing with a lot of swelling and immune activity that makes the disease worse and makes it progress. And the two brain cells I mentioned earlier, microglia and astrocytes, they're very important here. Normally they're helpful and protect the brain, but in Alzheimer's they go into a big overdrive and they start causing significant damage. And researchers have been studying ways to slow this inflammation down using things like inhibitors or natural compounds. And so far it looks like this is working and slowing down brain inflammation, meaning that it could be a viable treatment for Alzheimer's. Okay, so for a literature review, I will just give different examples of relevant studies that I'm including in my paper and explain how they're related to treating Alzheimer's. So the first study is called Inflammation and Brain Health by Charles Smith. It dives into how inflammation in the brain can be a double-edged sword. So on one hand, it's a natural response that protects the brain, but when it goes out of control, especially as people age, it can cause lots of damage, and this study explains how this type of chronic inflammation plays a big role in making conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and others much worse. And it helped me understand how inflammation shifts from being helpful to harmful and why it's important to keep it in check if we want to slow down diseases like Alzheimer's. So the next study I read was A Promise for Neuronal Repair by Lijuan Hong. It looked into something interesting, which was reprogramming astrocytes into neurons. This process could reduce inflammation by stopping astrocytes from becoming reactive, which is when they start scarring and make things worse within the brain. This could also help repair damaged brain networks, which might actually improve brain function. And the third study, Inhibitors of Microglial Neurotoxicity by Kong and others, talked about natural products like resveratrol, which can stop microglia from overreacting and causing too much inflammation. Together, these studies gave me a better understanding of how targeting both microglia and astrocytes could slow inflammation down and help treat Alzheimer's. The findings from these studies are so far very promising. They made me even more excited to focus my research onto this area. So when I started this research, I looked at a lot of different causes of Alzheimer's, and I then realized that neuroinflammation was one of the biggest ones. That's what led me to picking this topic. And then from there, I just went through lots of research articles and clinical trials that talked about how neuroinflammation works, how it contributes to Alzheimer's, and ways that it could potentially be reduced. And I'm currently working on combining all of the information that I found into one research paper, which will explore how some of these approaches could be used to treat Alzheimer's. So, conclusion. In summary, neuroinflammation in Alzheimer's can be slowed down by focusing on the harmful activities of microglia and astrocytes, using things like resveratrol to reduce microglial activation, or reprogramming astrocytes to block inflammatory pathways could help reduce the damage that these cells cause. And these methods don't just lower inflammation, they could also slow down how quickly the disease progresses. And my research brings together existing studies to suggest new ways of tackling Alzheimer's. But one limitation of my research is that it's all based on reading and analyzing studies. I didn't do any experiments in a lab, but even without lab work, I still think this research is important because it helps connect the dots between what we know now and what we might be able to do in the future to help people living with Alzheimer's. And lastly, I just wanted to thank Dr. Varkey for teaching me different things about neuroscience and helping me understand the brain better, and Professor Virgil for teaching me how to approach research, format my paper, and cite it in APA. And lastly, thank you to the Gifted Gabber team for organizing this whole program up and setting everything up.